Have you ever had a life-changing realization that felt so powerful you couldn't wait to tell the world, only to watch it crumble the moment you did? Picture this, Sarah, a 2-year-old teacher, discovered a truth about herself that flipped her entire world upside down. She felt unstoppable, like she'd unlocked the secret to her true potential. But when she shared it with her closest friends, their doubt and dismissal left her questioning everything. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, uncovered a hidden truth about these moments of awakening, a secret so profound it could save you years of wasted energy. But only if you know when to keep your mouth shut. In this video, we're diving deep into Carl Jung's wisdom to reveal why staying silent about your deepest insights isn't just powerful, it's essential for your transformation. You'll learn practical steps to protect your breakthroughs. Avoid the traps that derail 90% of people, and become the kind of person whose presence speaks louder than words. So, stick with us, because what you're about to discover will change how you handle every revelation for the rest of your life. Imagine this. You're sitting alone one evening, maybe scrolling through your phone or staring out a window, when suddenly it hits you, a truth so clear, so profound, it feels like the universe just whispered your purpose directly into your soul. Maybe it's the realization that you've been living for everyone else's expectations but your own. Or perhaps it's the sudden clarity that the career you've chased for years no longer aligns with who you're becoming. This is the moment of awakening Carl Jung described as the first step toward individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming your true, authentic self. But here's the catch. This moment is fragile, like a spark in a storm, and if you don't handle it with care, it can flicker out before it ever catches fire. Let's ground this in a story. Meet Alex, a 8-year-old graphic designer from Chicago. For years, Alex poured his heart into a corporate job, designing logos and campaigns for big brands. He was good at it, really good. But late one night, after another exhausting 12-hour workday, he stumbled across a quote from Carl Jung. "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Those words hit him like a lightning bolt. For the first time, Alex saw his life clearly. He wasn't just burned out, he was living a lie. His job, his social circle, even his hobbies were all shaped by what others expected of him, not what he truly wanted. In that moment, he felt alive, electric, like he'd cracked open a door to a version of himself he'd never met, but always known. This is what Carl Jung called the moment of awakening. It's not just an idea or a fleeting thought, it's a seismic shift in your psyche. According to Carl Jung's theory of individuation, this moment marks the beginning of a journey where you start to peel back the layers of who you've been told to be and discover who you're meant to be. It's the point where you realize the answers you've been chasing in books, podcasts, or endless Google searches aren't out there. They're already inside you, waiting to be uncovered. But here's where most people stumble, and Alex was no exception. In his excitement, Alex did what so many of us do. When we uncover something life-changing, he couldn't keep it to himself. The next day, he told his co-workers about his epiphany, expecting them to cheer him on. Instead, they brushed it off. "You're just stressed," one said. "Take a vacation. You'll be fine." Another chimed in. When he shared it with his best friend over drinks, his friend laughed and said, "What's this?" Some midlife crisis at 28, Alex felt deflated, like someone had poured cold water over his spark. What he didn't know then, and what Carl Jung understood deeply, is that these moments of awakening are sacred. They're not meant to be shouted from the rooftops, at least not right away. They're meant to be nurtured in silence, like a seed planted in rich soil. Why does this happen? Carl Jung's work on the psyche reveals that these awakenings are deeply personal. They're messages from your unconscious, tailored specifically to you. When you try to share them with others, especially those who haven't had their own moment of clarity, it's like trying to describe a vivid dream to someone who's never slept. They can't see it. Not because they don't care, but because they haven't walked the same path. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious speaks in symbols and feelings, not in words, ready for public consumption. When you rush to verbalize your awakening, you risk diluting its power, turning something sacred into something ordinary. Think about it. Have you ever had a moment where everything clicked, only to feel it slip away when you tried to explain it? Maybe you realized you needed to end a toxic relationship, or you saw through the hustle culture that's been draining you. But when you told someone, their blank stare or skeptical response made you second-guess yourself. That's not their fault. It's the nature of transformation. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Your awakening is an inward journey, and the first step is learning to protect it. So, how do you nurture this fragile spark? Carl Jung's concept of active imagination offers a clue. This is a practice where you engage with your unconscious through quiet reflection, journaling, or even creative expression, like art or meditation. Instead of rushing to tell the world, you sit with your realization. You ask yourself, what does this mean for me? How does this change the way I live? For Alex, this might have meant taking a week to journal about what truly mattered to him, maybe exploring his love for painting, which he'd abandoned years ago to chase a stable career. By giving himself space to process, he could have let that spark grow into a flame, guiding him towards real change. Here's the lesson. Your moment of awakening is like a seed. If you pull it out of the soil to show everyone, it stops growing. But if you let it root in the quiet darkness of your own mind, it has the chance to become something unshakable. Carl Jung observed that people who honor these moments in silence begin to notice subtle shifts. They start making small, deliberate choices, saying no to things that don't align with their truth, seeking out new experiences that do. Over time, these choices add up, transforming not just how they think, but how they live. If you're watching this, you've probably felt that spark yourself. Maybe it was a quiet realization about what you truly want, or a sudden clarity about what's been holding you back. Whatever it is, know this: that moment is yours, and yours alone. Don't let the world's noise drown it out. In the next chapter, we'll dive into why sharing that spark too soon can sabotage your growth and how your ego plays a sneaky role in it. But for now, pause and reflect. When was the last time you had a moment of awakening? What did you do with it? And what might have happened if you'd kept it to yourself just a little longer? So, you've had that electric moment of awakening, a truth about yourself that feels like it could move mountains. You're buzzing with energy, ready to tell the world what you've discovered. But stop for a second and ask yourself, why do you feel this urge to share? Is it really about inspiring others? Or is there something deeper at play? Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, had a name for this: the ego. And in his groundbreaking work on the human psyche, he uncovered a trap that catches almost everyone who stumbles upon a profound realization. It's called the trap of the ego. And falling into it can derail your transformation before it even begins. Let's dive into a story to make this real. Meet Mia, a 5-year-old marketing manager from Seattle. After years of feeling stuck in a high-pressure job, Mia attended a weekend mindfulness retreat. During a quiet moment of meditation, she had a breakthrough. She realized she'd been chasing promotions and praise to prove her worth. Not because it fulfilled her, it was a revelation that felt like freedom. Overwhelmed with excitement, Mia posted about it on Instagram the very next day, a long, heartfelt caption about finding her true self. She expected support, maybe even admiration. Instead, the comments were a mixed bag. Some friends liked it, but others rolled their eyes with remarks like, "Oh, another spiritual awakening," or "What's wrong with your job? You're killing it." Worse, a co-worker she admired sent her a snarky message. "Sounds like you're just bored." Mia's confidence wavered. That spark of clarity she felt, it started to dim, clouded by doubt and the need to justify herself. This is the trap of the ego. And Carl Jung saw it play out time and time again in his patients. In his theory of the psyche, the ego is the part of you that wants to be seen, validated, and praised. It's the voice that says, "I've figured something out, and I need everyone to know." But here's the kicker. When you share your breakthrough too soon, you're not sharing wisdom. You're feeding your ego's hunger for approval. And Carl Jung warned that this can sabotage your growth. Why? Because your ego is deeply tied to what he called the shadow, the hidden parts of yourself you don't want to face, like insecurity, fear of rejection, or the need to feel special. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is key here. The shadow isn't just your flaws or dark side, it's everything you've pushed away, including the need to be validated. When you have a moment of awakening, your ego jumps in, whispering, "This makes you unique. Tell everyone." But sharing too soon is like handing your precious realization to the world and saying, "Please tell me it's real." And when the world doesn't respond the way you hope, whether it's skepticism, indifference, or outright criticism, it's not just your idea that takes a hit. It's your confidence, your momentum, and sometimes even your belief in the truth you uncovered. Let's break this down with another example. Think about a time you learned something life-changing, maybe a realization about a relationship, a career goal, or even a spiritual insight. You couldn't wait to tell someone. Right. Maybe you texted a friend or posted online, expecting them to get it, but instead of cheers, you got silence. Or worse, pushback. That's what happened to Mia. Her post wasn't just about sharing her truth, it was her ego seeking a pat on the back. Carl Jung would say she was projecting her need for validation onto others. And when they didn't deliver, her shadow, the part of her that feared she wasn't enough, started to take over. Suddenly, her breakthrough felt less like freedom and more like a mistake. Here's where Jung's wisdom gets practical. He believed that true transformation happens when you face your shadow, not feed it. When you feel that overwhelming urge to share your insight, pause and ask yourself, am I sharing this to help someone else? Or am I looking for validation? 9 times out of 10, it's the latter. And that's okay, it's human. But recognizing it is the first step to avoiding the trap. Carl Jung's work with patients showed that those who rushed to share their awakenings often lost their spark because they gave away their power. They let others' opinions shape a truth that was meant to shape them. So, how do you avoid this trap? Carl Jung's advice is simple but profound. Turn inward. Instead of seeking external validation, start a dialogue with yourself. Write down your realization in a journal. Ask, what does this mean for my life? How can I live this truth instead of just talking about it for Mia? This might have meant reflecting on why she needed her co-worker's approval. Maybe she'd realized that her shadow, her fear of being insignificant, was driving her to overshare. By sitting with that discomfort, she could have started to heal it, letting her breakthrough take root. Here's a practical step you can take right now. The 24-hour rule. The next time you have a profound realization, commit to keeping it to yourself for 24 hours. Don't post about it. Don't text your friends. Don't even hint at it. Use that time to explore it, privately journal, meditate, or just sit with it. Carl Jung called this kind of inner work active imagination, a way to let your unconscious guide you toward deeper understanding. You'll be amazed at how much clearer your insight becomes when you don't dilute it with outside noise. Why does this matter? Because, as Carl Jung discovered, your ego thrives on external validation, but your true self thrives on inner alignment. When you share too soon, you're handing your power to others. But when you hold your truth close, you give it time to grow, to shape your actions, your choices, your life. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem unshakable, like they carry a quiet strength. Chances are, they've learned to keep their deepest insights sacred, sharing only when the time is right. That's the kind of power you're building when you avoid the ego's trap. If you're still with me, you're probably starting to see how sneaky the ego can be. Maybe you're thinking of a time you shared something profound and regretted it. Hold that thought, because in the next chapter, we'll explore why silence isn't just about avoiding the ego. It's about unlocking a deeper kind of wisdom that can transform your life. But before we move on, take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you shared a big realization and felt let down? What might have happened if you'd kept it to yourself instead? You've had that moment of awakening, that spark of truth that feels like it could change everything. You've recognized the ego's sneaky urge to share it with the world, seeking validation. But what if the real secret to unlocking the full power of that realization lies not in speaking, but in staying silent? Carl Jung, the visionary psychologist, believed that silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a sacred space where your deepest truths take root and transform you. In his groundbreaking work on the psyche, Carl Jung discovered that silence is the key to integrating your insights, turning fleeting moments of clarity into lasting change. This is the power of silence, and it's about to change how you approach every breakthrough for the rest of your life. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Daniel, a 40-year-old entrepreneur from Austin, Texas. Daniel had built a successful tech startup, but the grind was killing him. Long hours, constant pressure, and a nagging feeling that he was living someone else's dream left him drained. One evening, while journaling, he stumbled upon a truth that shook him to his core. He wasn't passionate about tech. He was passionate about teaching others to find their purpose. The realization hit like a wave, and his first instinct was to tell his business partners, hoping they'd support his pivot. But something stopped him. He'd read about Carl Jung's idea of active imagination, a practice of engaging with your unconscious through quiet reflection, and decided to try it. Instead of sharing his breakthrough, Daniel committed to a week of silence, exploring his insight through journaling and meditation. What happened next was nothing short of transformative. By sitting with his realization in silence, Daniel began to see it more clearly. He asked himself tough questions. Why had he chased success in tech? What did teaching others mean to him in that quiet space? He uncovered memories of mentoring younger colleagues and how those moments lit him up more than any boardroom win. He started sketching out ideas for a coaching business, not to show anyone, but to understand his own vision. By the end of the week, his spark had grown into a clear plan. 6 months later, Daniel launched a coaching program that not only fulfilled him, but inspired hundreds of others. His silence didn't just protect his insight, it amplified it. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said that wisdom thrives in stillness. In his theory of individuation, the process of becoming your true self-silence is where your unconscious mind does its deepest work. When you resist the urge to share your breakthrough, you create space for what Carl Jung called active imagination. This isn't just sitting quietly, it's an active dialogue with your inner world. You might write down your thoughts, Visualize your future, or even draw symbols that capture your realization. The key is to let your insight marinate without the interference of external opinions. Carl Jung found that his patients who practiced this kind of silence began to see their truths evolve, revealing layers they hadn't noticed at first. Why is silence so powerful? Because, as Carl Jung discovered, your unconscious speaks in symbols, feelings, and instincts, not in polished words. Ready for a social media post? When you rush to explain your awakening, you're forcing it into a language that can't fully capture its depth. It's like trying to describe a sunset to someone who's never seen one. You lose the magic in translation. But when you hold your truth in silence, you give it room to grow, to shape your thoughts, your habits, your life. Carl Jung observed that people who embraced this practice started to change in subtle but profound ways. They made bolder decisions, walked away from toxic situations, and carried a quiet confidence that others couldn't help but notice. Let's make this practical. Think about a time you had a big realization, maybe about a relationship, a career, or even your own self-worth. Did you feel the need to tell someone right away? Now imagine what might have happened if you'd given yourself a few days to sit with it. For Daniel, that week of silence was like planting a seed in fertile soil. Instead of seeking approval from his partners, he let his vision take root. He didn't just think about his truth, he started living it. And that's the secret Carl Jung uncovered. Silence isn't passive, it's active. It's the crucible where your insights become part of who you are. Here's a simple exercise to tap into this power, the silent reflection practice. The next time you have a breakthrough, set aside 15 minutes each day for 3 days to explore it privately. Grab a notebook and write down what this realization means to you. Ask, how does this change my perspective? What small step can I take to live this truth? Or, if writing isn't your thing, try visualizing yourself, acting on this insight. Picture how it feels, what it looks like. The goal isn't to perfect your thoughts, it's to let them breathe. Carl Jung found that this kind of inner work strengthens your connection to your unconscious and to us out, making your realizations more vivid and actionable. Why does this matter? Because silence doesn't just protect your truth, it amplifies it. Carl Jung's patients who practiced active imagination often reported feeling more grounded, more certain of their path. They didn't need to shout their insights from the rooftops because their actions spoke louder. Think about someone you admire, maybe a mentor, a friend, or even a public figure. Chances are, their power comes not from what they say, but from how they live. That's the gift of silence. It lets you embody your truth before you ever have to explain it. If you're still with me, you're probably starting to see why silence is more than just keeping quiet. It's a tool for transformation. Maybe you're thinking of a time you spoke too soon and wished you'd held back. In the next chapter, we'll explore why others often resist your truth when you do share it, and how their reactions can derail your growth if you're not careful. But before we move on, pause and reflect. When was the last time you gave yourself the gift of silence? What might you discover if you let your next big realization grow in stillness? You felt that spark of awakening, nurtured it in silence, and started to see how it can transform your life. But what happens when you finally decide to share your truth with someone you care about? Maybe you expect them to light up with excitement, to cheer you on, or at least to understand. Instead, you're met with a blank stare, a dismissive comment, or even outright hostility. Why does this happen? Carl Jung, the genius behind modern psychology, had a name for this psychological projection. In his work with thousands of patients, Carl Jung discovered that when you share a profound realization with someone who isn't ready, you're not just sharing an idea, you're threatening their comfort zone and their resistance can shake your confidence if you're not prepared. Let's dive into why others resist your truth and how to protect your growth from their reactions. Picture this, Lisa, a 42-year-old single mother from Denver, had spent years putting her family's needs above her own. One day, while reading about Carl Jung's concept of individuation, she had a breakthrough. She realized she'd been living to please others, sacrificing her dreams to keep everyone else happy. It was a revelation that made her feel alive for the first time in years, excited. She shared it with her sister over coffee, expecting support. Instead, her sister frowned and said, "What's wrong with taking care of your family? That's what moms do." When Lisa tried to explain, her sister cut her off. "You're being selfish. Don't get all woo-woo on me." Lisa left the conversation feeling small, her spark of clarity dimmed by her sister's words. What went wrong? Carl Jung would say this is a classic case of projection. In his theory of the psyche, projection happens when people see in others what they're unwilling to face in themselves. When Lisa shared her realization, her sister didn't just hear a new idea. She saw a mirror reflecting her own fears about change. Lisa's awakening challenged her sister's belief that self-sacrifice is a mother's duty. It stirred up discomfort, maybe even guilt, about her own choices. So, her sister pushed back, not because Lisa was wrong, but because Lisa's truth made her confront something she wasn't ready to face. Carl Jung observed this pattern repeatedly when you share a deep insight. People don't just react to your words, they react to what your words stir up in their own unconscious. This resistance isn't personal, even though it feels like it. Carl Jung's work shows that people project their unresolved fears, insecurities, or unacknowledged desires onto others, especially when confronted with someone else's growth. Your clarity can expose their confusion. Your courage to change can highlight their stagnation. As Carl Jung put it, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But here's the hard truth. Most people aren't ready to do that inner work. So, when you share your truth, you're not just inviting a conversation, you're inviting a confrontation with their shadow, the part of them they've buried. Let's look at another example. Imagine you've realized you need to leave a toxic workplace to pursue a career that aligns with your values. You tell a close friend, expecting them to be thrilled for you. Instead, they say, "Are you sure? That sounds risky. You've got a good thing going." Their response might seem like concern, but Carl Jung would argue it's projection. Your decision to prioritize your happiness might remind them of their own fears about taking risks or leaving their comfort zone. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the discomfort your choice brings up in them. So, how do you protect your truth from this kind of resistance? Carl Jung's wisdom offers a powerful strategy. Choose your audience carefully. In his clinical practice, Carl Jung practiced what he called graduated revelation, sharing insights only with those who showed genuine openness. He'd observe his patients' readiness, their curiosity, their willingness to face uncomfortable truths. Only then would he offer deeper wisdom. You can do the same. Before sharing your breakthrough, ask yourself, is this person ready to hear this? Are they on a similar journey? Or are they likely to feel threatened by my growth? If the answer is no, keep your truth close. Not because you don't care about them, but because your insight deserves to be honored, not diminished. Here's a practical tool to help you navigate this: the readiness test. Before sharing a big realization, consider 3 questions. First, does this person have a track record of supporting my growth? Second, are they open to new ideas? Or do they cling to their current beliefs? Third, will sharing this help me stay true to my path? Or am I seeking their approval? If the answers point to resistance, hold back. Save your truth for those who are ready to receive it. Or better yet, let your actions speak for you. Carl Jung believed that the most powerful way to share your truth is to live it. When you embody your realization, it creates a ripple effect that inspires others without a single word. Why does this matter? Because, as Carl Jung discovered, your psychological energy is finite. Every time you share your truth with someone who isn't ready, you're spending precious energy defending yourself instead of growing. Carl Jung called this psychic hemorrhaging, the draining of your inner strength through unnecessary explanations. Think about Lisa again. If she'd kept her realization to herself and started taking small steps like signing up for a course aligned with her dreams, she might have built momentum instead of doubting herself. By choosing silence, you protect your energy and let your truth shape your life. Not someone else's opinion. If you're still watching, you're probably starting to see why sharing your truth isn't always the answer. Maybe you're thinking of a time you opened up and got shut down. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to live your truth so powerfully that it speaks for itself, without needing words. But before we move on, take a moment to reflect. When was the last time someone resisted your truth? Could their reaction have been about their own fears, not your insight? And what might happen if you saved your next revelation for the right moment or didn't share it at all? You've uncovered a life-changing truth, nurtured it in silence, and learned to protect it from the resistance of others. Now comes the most powerful step living that truth. Carl Jung, the master of understanding the human psyche, believed that the ultimate goal of individuation, becoming your true self, isn't about shouting your insights from the rooftops. It's about embodying them so fully that your life becomes a living testament to what you've discovered. When you live your truth, you don't need to explain it. Your actions, your energy, your presence speak louder than words ever could. In this chapter, we'll explore how to make your truth a part of who you are. Why? That's the key to unshakable transformation. And a practical challenge to help you start today. Let's ground this in a story. Meet Elena, a 29-year-old artist from New York City. For years, Elena chased commercial success, painting what galleries wanted, instead of what stirred her soul. One day, while reading Carl Jung's work on the authentic self, she had a revelation. Her art wasn't just a job, it was her way of expressing her deepest truths. She realized she'd been silencing her creativity to fit in. Her first instinct was to tell her artist friends, hoping they'd cheer her on. But remembering a painful rejection from the past, she chose silence instead. For weeks, Elena poured her energy into creating art that felt true to her bold, rough, unapologetic. She didn't post about it online or seek approval from her peers. Instead, she let her work speak. Months later, at a small gallery show, her new paintings drew a crowd. People weren't just admiring her art, they were moved by it, asking questions about her process, her inspiration. Without saying a word, Elena's truth had sparked curiosity and connection. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your own heart." Living your truth isn't about convincing others or proving you've changed. It's about aligning your actions with your inner realization. Carl Jung's theory of individuation teaches that transformation happens when you integrate your insights into your daily life, not when you broadcast them. When you live your truth, you create a kind of psychological gravitas, a presence that others feel without you needing to explain it. Think about the people who inspire you most. Maybe it's a colleague who quietly radiates confidence, or a friend who walks away from drama with grace. Their power doesn't come from what they say, it comes from how they live. Why is this so powerful? Because, as Carl Jung discovered, people don't follow words, they follow energy. When you embody your truth, Your choices, habits, and even the way you carry yourself send a signal to the world. You become a walking invitation for others to explore their own paths, not because you're preaching, but because your life is proof of what's possible. Carl Jung observed that his patients who focused on living their insights rather than talking about them developed a quiet strength that drew others in. They didn't need to announce their transformation. Their presence did that for them. Let's make this practical with a real-world example. Imagine you've realized you need to prioritize your mental health over a toxic work environment. Instead of telling everyone you're done with the hustle, you start making changes. You set boundaries, leave work on time, and invest in hobbies that light you up. Over time, your friends notice you're calmer, more grounded. They start asking, "What's different about you?" That's when your truth speaks through your actions, not your words. Carl Jung called this letting your example be the invitation. By living your truth, you create curiosity without forcing it, inspiring others who are ready to grow. Here's a challenge to help you start living your truth. The 7-day silence practice. For the next 7 days, commit to keeping any new realization to yourself. Instead of sharing it, focus on one small action each day that aligns with your insight. If your breakthrough is about valuing your time, say no to one commitment that doesn't serve you. If it's about embracing your creativity, spend 15 minutes sketching or writing. Track these actions in a journal, noting how they make you feel. Carl Jung's work on active imagination suggests that small, intentional steps like these help integrate your truth into your life, making it stronger with every choice. By the end of the week, you'll likely notice a shift, not just in how you see yourself, but in how others respond to you. Why does this matter? Because living your truth builds what Carl Jung called inner authority. This is the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you're aligned with your deepest values, regardless of what others think. Carl Jung found that people who practiced this kind of integration stopped seeking validation and started attracting the right people, those who were genuinely curious about their journey. Your silence becomes a magnet, drawing in those who are ready to learn from your example, not your explanations. If you're still here, you're probably feeling the power of this idea. Maybe you're thinking of a time you tried to explain your growth and felt misunderstood. What if, instead, you'd let your actions do the talking? In our final chapter, we'll wrap up with how to carry this wisdom forward, creating a life that speaks louder than words. But before we move on, pause and reflect. What's one small action you could take today to live a truth you've been keeping inside? And what might happen if you let that action speak for you? So here we are. At the end of this journey through Carl Jung's profound wisdom, you've discovered the secret that can transform your life when you uncover a truth about yourself. Silence isn't just golden, it's revolutionary. By holding your realizations close, nurturing them in stillness, and letting them shape your actions, you're not just protecting your growth, you're building a life that speaks louder than words. Imagine this, a version of you so aligned with your truth that people can't help but notice. They'll see it in the way you move, the choices you make, the quiet strength you carry. That's the power Carl Jung promised, the power of becoming who you truly are. Not by shouting it, but by living it. This isn't about hiding or staying small. It's about honoring the sacred spark within you, giving it the space to grow into a flame that lights your path. Every time you choose silence over validation, every time you act on your truth instead of explaining it, you're stepping closer to the unshakable version of yourself Carl Jung called the authentic self. So, what's next? Take that spark you're feeling right now and protect it. Try the 7-day silence practice we shared. Live one small truth each day and watch how it transforms you. If this journey has sparked something in you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Jung Psyche Hub and hit the bell to join us for more insights on unlocking your true potential. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, someone on their own path to self-discovery. And in the comments below, tell us what's one truth you're ready to live. Not just speak. Your story could inspire someone else. Thank you for being here. And let's keep growing together quietly, powerfully, authentically,